Hello viewers, Lorenzo here, episode 47 of KSP to Mars, where we start with those most exciting of things, budget cuts. Now, of course, we don't have to contend with an actual budget, so I will forgive you for wondering what the hell that's about. Well, consider that we are operating quite a number of space programs. We have escape trajectories going on here, stations around Kerbin, stations around Mars, stations around the moon, and now crashed and marooned people on the moon, and of course our probes, if I can find them here. Where are they? Our probes to Saturn and Jupiter, the one that tragically failed last episode. Add to that, we also have our Photon Sailor, the solar sail that's currently in orbit around the Sun, and that adds up to a lot of things to keep track of. Well, mirroring the situation in the real world, where the ICE-3 Solar Earth Explorer satellite, and if you haven't heard that yet, it's basically a satellite that was sent into a, well, very similar to Earth's orbit, slightly smaller than around the Sun, to do science, and in the 80s it was shut down. This is a probe from 1975 or thereabouts. Now, 30 years later, 30 years after it was reportedly shut down, it is coming closer to Earth again. Earth did 31 trips around the Sun, and this probe did 30, and now they're rendezvousing again. Turns out the guy that was supposed to send the deactivation code didn't actually do that, and surprise, surprise, the probe is still functioning pretty much perfectly as far as they can tell. It's sending a signal, and I think only one out of its dozen or so science experiments have failed. The rest is collecting useful data. Even better, the probe has still some fuel in it and has 150 meters per second of delta V left in it. Now, because it's coming close to the Earth, it can use its gravity, and combined with that 150 meters per second of delta V, it could do a maneuver to many, many different places in the solar system. This probe was originally intended to study the Sun. It has since done comet research, and it could do that again, or go to a near-Earth asteroid. One problem: NASA and the Deep Space Network, which is the network of telescopes all over the world that they use to track their stuff and communicate with it, they have thrown away, ditched, decommissioned, forgotten about, well, not forgotten about, they just made the decision in 1999 to upgrade their antennae and transmitters and all that stuff, and now they can't transmit anything to that probe. They have the specs, it's just they reason it's too expensive to, well, modify their upgraded space tracking network to, well, be backwards compatible, as it were. So in all likelihood, this probe is going to rendezvous with Earth, and nothing will be done with it. In a way, it's a bit of a pity, but otherwise, well, it's quite understandable, because, well, it is a very old probe, and a full systems report we can't get because we can't ask it to send it to us. It will probably do so without problem, but yeah, we can't really communicate with it. So that's an interesting bit of space news these past few days and weeks. It will rendezvous with Earth in August, I think, of this year. So there's some time yet for entrepreneuring transmitters. Maybe they can figure that out if NASA releases the stats. One thing that is funny, the probe was donated to the Smithsonian Museum with with the note in that donation that said, well, we don't actually have it yet. Should we collect it, then it's yours, but we're not going to. So that's funny. Anyway, a little bit off topic here, because today we are doing budget cuts of our own. I have decided to focus solely on the Moon program. That is, going to the Moon, obviously. The Mars program, which is going to Mars, and nothing else. Basically, all the various stations around the Moon will be consolidated and evacuated onto the lunar surface, where then at some to be determined place we will build a base of sorts. And this is where this craft that you've been staring at while I've been talking about the NASA probe for a while, this craft comes in. This, I call it the Lobber Shuttle, is supposed to be our means of lunar transport. It seats 2 Kerbals, and it has the aluminum oxidizer hybrid rocket. Now, this is a terrible rocket in thrust performance and stuff. Look, if we can find it here, this is the one. It has 286 specific impulse seconds, 286 seconds of specific impulse and 550 thrust. That's one of the worst rockets we have. So why are we using it? Because we can refuel it on the Martian, on the lunar surface with the resource processing unit here. Now, that needs a lot of power, and this whole assembly as it is has about 2.7 kilometers per second of delta V, which is not a lot. So instead of packing nuclear reactors and reducing that further, I have added a wireless power receiver. That means that in our new and leaner space program, the power station around the Earth will be maintained as well. It will not be expanded upon, at least not until we have some significant breakthroughs in power generating technology, but it will receive nuclear fuel shipments if they run when they run out. They are going to run out, that's a given. So these kind of things can operate. This does mean that it has to land on the side of the moon that's facing the Earth, or wait half a month before it can refuel. This seats too, but it also flies unmanned, so we're going to not bring any more Kerbals to the moon today. And then this can be used to ferry Kerbals from orbit to the lunar surface. Although the 2.7 kilometers per second of delta V figure is an interesting one, because that allows for a one-way orbit to surface transport. It has enough delta V to land. It also allows for a one-way surface to orbit transport. It has enough delta V to get into orbit, but it doesn't have enough to do both. So we cannot, from the surface of the moon, go into orbit and then land again. And this is one of the rockets that's, not really refuelable in orbit. So once it's on the lunar surface, it is definitely going to stay there. Now we can use this then for suborbital hops. We can spend about 1,000 meters per second of delta V, getting us into a trajectory that will take us somewhere, and then the rest, like 1,700, to land and then refuel at that point. So what I'm hoping to do is to scout out the remaining biomes on the moon with this thing. And of course, once we have a base, it will serve as the infrastructure for that. So that's what I'm going to launch today, and we'll see how that goes. Because the top stage of our rocket now has the most terrible ISP imaginable, the whole rocket is suffering. This whole launch assembly has about 16.5 kilometers per second, and it's going to be cutting it pretty close with the amount of delta V available for an actual lunar landing. So I'm going to have to fly efficient this time. And this is also the reason why I'm not taking any Kerbals. Excuse me, I was not going to bring any Kerbals today. So let's get back to the Space Center and launch without Kerbals. I don't know, I thought I removed them from the window, but well, I did not, apparently. Or they got added back in. Don't know what happened there. But yeah, because it's going to be so hit and miss, we might very well crash on the lunar surface. I'm not going to bring any more Kerbals. The mission first will be to land at any point on the moon. We have no fuel to be picky about these things. And let's see, no Kerbals. Save, launch. We have no resources to spare to be picky about these sort of things, so we're just going to shoot for the moon, get a very low periapsis. I'm thinking about 10 kilometers, something like that, 20 maybe, and then from there on just brake and land immediately. If our transfer stage, which I've made nuclear, if that gets us onto the collision course, then I'm going to try and focus on that and get a seismic result, although I think you need to have a controlling part on whichever part is going to be impacting the moon, so that might not work. That's the plus side of this mission. Oh no, the base that had the seismometer has since crashed. Although I don't remember if I managed to activate the seismometer on that toppled over base, if it even still had one. Yeah, so that's the question mark. Well, if we crash, we're going to find out then whether or not that's actually going to give us some science. This Lobber shuttle, it carries a basic package of science experiments, the graviolometer and the temperature scanner. The point is to take Kerbals, hop it around the lunar surface, and do EVA reports, surface samples and stuff that can then be taken back with a separate lander return flight thingy that will take it back to Earth. So I'm going to launch this, and while I do so, I have another story to tell you. Well, it's not really a story, but more something interesting. Wow, look at that. Lifting off ever so slowly. I'm just going to turn down my speaker so I don't get too much back sound through the microphone. Yeah, this is the slowest takeoff in the most horrible frames per second, so don't mind that. I was browsing the Kerbal Space Program forums, and if you haven't checked them out, you should, because, well, there's some fun and occasional nice. There's some rather good topics there every once in a while. Sometimes it does appear as though everyone is 5 years old, but hey, that's the internet for you. Anyway, there was a topic about KSP YouTubers, and everyone was posting their favorite YouTubers, and I was gonna browse that. It was like 10 pages long when I found it. I was like, gee, wouldn't it be fun if someone put me in there? And well, of course, there's Scott Manley, HLC Gaming, Kurt J. Mack. I have no idea how I'm supposed to say his name. All the big names in KSP YouTubing. They were of course mentioned dozens and dozens of times, and then on the second to last page, there's Fifth Horseman and Nathan, and there's like, yes, I like Don Lorenzo. It's like, yes, I'm very happy to see you guys. Thanks for that shout out. That was pretty cool. Of course, Fifth Horseman himself, he also makes KSP videos. And unfortunately, I don't really get to watch them or anyone else's. I spend most of my time on the computer either playing games that are not Kerbal Space Program, and when I'm spending time with Kerbal Space Program, I'm of course recording and talking to you guys. So unfortunately, I don't really get to watch that many KSP YouTube videos, but I do want to give Fifth Horseman a huge shout out because he did the same for me. Go ahead, check out his channel. He does a lot of things. He also has very frequent updates, like once a day, once every 2 days, I think. And I think currently he's doing a series where he makes a base on every celestial object in the Kerbal solar system, which is of course a huge undertaking and carries with it its fair share of explosions, crashes, and funny moments. It's not quite the comedy of failures that, well, this series is turning out to somewhat be. Well, it's not only failures, we do have the occasional success, but he does fun stuff as well, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, go check it out, but of course not before you finish this video. What I'm thinking about organizing in a bit is like a small KSP YouTuber, I don't know, feature list combination effort, like a shared world where we do, I don't know, one launch in succession and you use it to, I don't know, show off your channel, your style, and then with every video you have to pass on the save file to the next guy, and then he gets to do it. So people that watch the series, they would have to hop from channel to channel to channel, which would cross-pollinate and expose, well, all these other wonderful YouTubers. So yeah, I might write that up this afternoon. I do have some time today. Oh dear. Here we have our first failure of the day. The fairings inexplicably have been put in the first stage. So yeah, we are launching without our aerodynamic fairings. Fortunately, our rocket today is not that unaerodynamic actually, so I'm going to try and continue with that launch. I've been talking for a fair amount of time now, so oh no, here goes the rocket. It's wobbling off course horribly already. Yes, this is not going well. Fortunately, this is unmanned, and oh, there's also things exploding. Yeah, fortunately this was unmanned, so... oh dear, what happened? Oh, some stuff happened here. Yeah, we are definitely not in good shape because of this fairing mishap. Fortunately it's unmanned, so I can, without shame of conscience, I can just press the revert to launch button, and with that said, and there we are, nicely in orbit with a little bit of fuel remaining in the upper stage of the booster. Now, again, the flight engineer has broken. I don't know how this updates. I have a feeling though that the total delta V could be on target, because I remember that this transfer stage has 3.5 kilometers per second and this last one has 2.7. Oh, even that's still these readouts, of course. Now there's a little bit left in the upper stage, which is this one, which hasn't updated since mid-flight, but this together is 6.19. No, this doesn't even make sense. This is just these last two, and so we have 6.2 plus whatever is remaining in this. So hopefully that's going to be enough for a touchdown on the moon. Let's have a look and see if I can set up an encounter with it. Set as the target. And I have a feeling that it is in a horrible position for a transfer from one of these nodes. That would mean that we're looking at a few days up to half a month or so of waiting time, because it's very far away from the node. It's a quarter month away, which of course is how much is a quarter month? That's 7 days. Maybe it's not too bad if I can. If the trajectory ends up to be a little bit higher, that this is 15 days. No. Oh, look at that. There we go, an encounter. This is not quite the most efficient way of getting to the moon, but yeah, and we do need that efficiency. So I'm going to time warp forward a few days here in orbit and see if we can make it to be precisely on target. 7 days, yeah, that quarter of a month thingy was rather good estimation. Right, I'm going to time warp a little bit, set this up all properly, and then we will see how this, well, this sausage of joy gets there. And here we are, en route to the moon. See, the intercept has been plotted. Ooh, dear. This rocket has a lot more acceleration than the nuclear engine had, of course. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go for a direct impact / landing approach. This is the most efficient way to do it, I think. And of course also the most risky, because there's no margin for error. God damn it. I keep trying to make a maneuver node that will make me impact the moon, but somehow when I make the node and it gives me an impact course, and I then do it, then it won't get me a periapsis that goes to 0. So that's a little bit annoying. Let's see what the periapsis reads now. It reads 3,500 kilometers. I am going to roll with that just for easiness sake, and I have 2.7 kilometers per second of delta V now left here. A little bit less, I spent about 100 already, so let's call that 2.5. I'm completely unsure whether that will be enough to land on the moon. It will be close, that's for sure. What we're going to try is, well, fast forward to the lunar sphere of influence, of course, and then from there on turn our trajectory into an impact one that's slightly less efficient than doing it from Earth orbit, but I got fed up with the fiddliness and just missing it by a few %. So I hope we can do it from here on out, and well, I also hope that we can land and not horribly die, because that would be nice, wouldn't it? 2.5 is, we're going to have to do a bang-on landing. That's for sure. Let's see what this gives us. This gives us a periapsis of course, 3,500 kilometers. And to lower that, well, I first of course needs to disable the time warp a little bit. I'm going to aim this way. I think that's the correct way to aim at any rate. Guesstimating rocket science, here we go, yeah. That is currently being deflected, this trajectory, wonderfully. And I might, instead of a straight impact trajectory, I could go for a periapsis of 30 kilometers, and that allows me to do most of my burn closer to the surface, which will be a little bit more efficient, so I'm going to try that. So no direct impact, that's a little bit too gutsy, and I think by doing it this way, apart from, instead of approaching the surface, I get to do more of my burn near the surface rather than high up, because obviously if I'm going to be coming down at somewhere near 2 kilometers per second, and I will need a non-zero amount of seconds, that translates into probably more than 30 kilometers of altitude while I'm doing the burn. So this way at least our hardware won't get immediately destroyed. Although the failure mode is still horrible. You'll see I am again coming in for a wonderful nighttime landing. I have more tools than last episode though. I brought lights, I actually did, and I have of course the flight engineer that will give me the altitude to the surface as well. So that is wonderful. The speed is very, very troubling indeed. That is approaching 2.5 kilometers per second quite rapidly, meaning there is a, well, as I said already, a very, very low, if not zero, amount of margin for error. Basically, if we burn out the rocket now, we will have come to a stop at the 30 kilometers of altitude. So yeah, this is going to be tricky. This is going to be very, very tricky. Fortunately, my thrust to weight ratio is positively huge, and that means that I can afford to wait until the very last moment. See, there go the lights. And, well, we're gonna need them. That's all I can say about that. So we're at 80 kilometers of altitude now. Unfortunately, it really is very, very dark. So let's time warp to our absolute periapsis and punch it there. No, we don't have enough delta V for this. This is going to be terrible. This is going to be terrible. But maybe we can crash at something like 50 meters per second and maybe that will work. Damn it. Right, so here we go. With this almost certainly doomed lander firing. Decelerating at a lot of G's, spewing this aluminum oxide out into space at a terrible specific impulse. Yes, that is exactly what we will be doing. What we are doing, in fact. Oh, so this will take longer than I initially thought. Maybe if we land on a mountain we will need less delta V. No. Well, I could say leave it in orbit, but there's no way for this vessel to refuel, so that serves little purpose. Although, if I do it like this, I can do my landing on the day-lit side, which at least will be somewhat nice. Yeah. So let's do that instead. I can tweak it like so, where we skim over the surface at an absolutely ludicrous altitude and then try and stop that. I think that will be fun, yeah. I'm going to put this periapsis here. That means we'll be landing here in the sunlight, and we're going close to the surface really, really fast. That is at least a good way to end. Fortunately, the engineer won't give me the delta V readout, so we can rest assured in the false belief that we have plenty. Yeah. So let's time warp forwards, and here we are in the day side. Oh, stop. We are time warping perilously close to the surface. Did I just ruin that already? We are at 20 kilometers of altitude now, going at 1600 meters per second. And I'm going to wait until we are... What do you think a good altitude is? 8 kilometers of altitude until stopping? Until trying to stop at any rate? It's going to have to be really close. So yeah, I think 8 kilometers is a good... We'll make a decent effort, at least. Can we do some gravity science while we're here? Yeah, we already did this one. So any mountains coming up in the distance, these are now fairly important. We are now 10 kilometers over the surface. Yeah, 12. I feel 12 is a better number than 8. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. See if we can in fact do it. Here goes the engine. Right, and that will make... yeah, we need the surface display, not the orbital one. Fortunately, that is the one I'm currently looking at. Vertical speed is just minus 20 meters per second now, so that's not a lot at all. So here we go, kilometer per second to go, and we are almost through the fuel. Yeah, that's Yeah, it's not. Although, still I'm hopeful, eh? Still I'm, damn it, still I'm hopeful. Look at that, we have dregs of fuel left. I am going to cut it here. 160 meters per second of speed at this moment. And still 10 kilometers over the surface. If I did a perfect suicide burn, I would possibly have been able to do it. But of course I did not. We have at this point 0.3 units of aluminum left. I don't know how did I manage to cut the throttle just before running out of fuel. That means this mission was short about 200 meters per second of delta V. That does hurt. That hurts. That is painful. That is something you can get from optimizing a maneuver. That is something you can get from adding half a tank of fuel to your launcher. That is something you can get from fine-tuning your orbit from Earth instead of finagling it here near the moon. Yeah, this is a disgrace. This is not good at all. Not good at all. 3 units of oxidizer at 260 ISP will not, in fact, equal 200 meters per second of delta V. I'm going to wait until the last second anyway to burn it, to reduce this speed at least a little bit, but I fear for the purpose of this craft, for the destiny of this craft, it is not going to be pretty. That I can tell you. Too bad. Too bad indeed. We're at 2 kilometers now. Coming on 1. Yeah, firing the engine, and that was that. That was very underwhelming. Maybe the landing legs will absorb the impact of Mach 1. They did not. Damn it. Yeah, so no lunar hopper, not yet. I'm going to redesign the ship, possibly add another tank of fuel for the nuclear stage, or yeah, there was some leeway for that in the launcher. That can be burnt more efficiently, granting us possibly even a whole kilometer per second. Who knows? I'm going to have a look at that, and I will show you the results of that tomorrow. Because as we look at this falling debris, I think that's a good point to end this episode. If I do manage to work out the problems, and I think I will be, you will see the results tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'm Lorenzo. Do subscribe if you want to see me succeed at some undefined point far into the future, because so far it's been a string of failures. Yeah, that's the real solar system for you. Things are large, delta V budgets are tight, and not everything always works out. See you tomorrow, or whenever I get around making a video. Probably tomorrow. Bye. Bye. See you later.